Today, we become legends.
Ultimates, the most powerful abilities of every god in Smite 2. These abilities can win fights on their own when used right, and playing around their cooldowns is core to Smite 2's gameplay. Every ultimate is powerful in its own right, but which are the best of the best? Let's find out. Are we taking into account every aspect of the ultimate in question for this list? Its damage, its utility, its cooldown, how useful it is in any scenario, all that stuff. But without further ado, let's jump in with my number 10 pick for the list. So first up, we have Hades' Pillar of Agony, which is definitely a choice you would not see if this was a list for Smite 1. The +1 change that this ability got going into the sequel took it from a mediocre ultimate that would probably sit somewhere in the bottom half of the roster, so one of the best ults in the entire game for Smite 2 in my view. Being able to use one of your basic abilities while ulting completely changes the game for Pillar of Agony. Most of the time you're going to see Devour Souls being used here for the insane burst damage, but using Death from Below to catch enemies who jump away or use beads is also solid. Shroud of Darkness is rarely used as it sort of just fills the same purpose as Death from Below. Instead of just chasing them, you just stop them jumping away in the first place. But this doesn't work as well against CC immunity, so generally isn't used as much. Hades also enjoys some of the new Smite 2 systems that make his ult a lot better, such as the one relic system, making it harder for enemies to completely nullify his ult's impact on cooldown, as well as active items. Specifically, Helm of Darkness is great to get into the enemy backline undetected and instantly nuke the whole team with a quick ulted to 3. This ability had an insane glow up going into Smite 2 and has become one of the most devastating late game teamfight ultimates, which is kinda crazy considering how useless Hades felt in late game teamfights in Smite 1. My number 9 pick is sort of the opposite of Hades. Scarab's Blessing from Khepri has always been powerful and will remain so due to the way it fundamentally breaks the rules of Smite to a certain extent. Being able to revive a teammate is one of the single most powerful effects to have on your team, not only for correcting mistakes, but also for making it harder for the enemy team to simply focus down your carry and eliminate them. This is one of those ults that not only gets value when it's used, but also gets a lot of value when it's not used, simply from the threat of it being available that completely changes the dynamic of a team fight. It's not just defense though. With good communication, you can even make amazing use of Khepri ult as an aggressive tool by letting your teammates dive way deeper than they normally could get away with to secure a kill and then be revived afterwards. Even if you try and play around Khepri ult by not killing the target, the buff lasts 5 seconds, which is an eternity in a Smite teamfight. Even if you don't get the res off, giving a diving teammate 5 extra seconds to finish off a kill and get out is often enough to completely swing a fight. Khepri ult is and always will be one of the most powerful tools in the game, just due to how fundamentally it breaks the rules. So we've had an ultimate that got much better in Smite 2 and an ultimate that just remained strong from Smite 1. Next up, we have one that's sort of a bit of both. Artemis ultimate has always been one of the better ults in the game due to being able to stun an entire team. But in Smite 2, it got even better due to the improved AI on Tusky. You can't even jump away from this ult on reaction anymore because Tusky will charge to where you leapt from, then charge again as soon as you land and still stun you. The improved AI basically took this from an amazing but sometimes inconsistent ultimate to one that reliably stuns the entire team, and of course gives Artemis long duration CC immunity to work with as well. Even if this doesn't stun though, it still creates an absolutely massive area of the teamfight that enemies simply can't walk into for fear of being stunned and deleted by Artemis's incredible late game shred. Sure, Artemis has no traditional movement ability, which in theory should make her easy to dive, but this ultimate completely flips that dynamic on its head. You better make damn sure you have beads available if you want to dive a late game Artemis, because if you don't, she's just gonna press 4 and now she's CC immune, you're stunned, and they're probably going to eat a follow-up trap to keep you locked down for an extra 1.75 seconds. In total, that's more than 3 seconds of lockdown, which is well over what Artemis needs in the late game to completely shred you. Oh, and this ult does all of this on a flat 90-second cooldown as well. Just crazy. Speaking of gigantic team-wide CC abilities though, next up at number 7 we have Hun Batz ultimate Fear No Evil, which before some recent nerfs will probably have been higher than number 7 on the list, as it always has been one of the most powerful team fighting tools in the entire game, due to its massive AoE and persistent reapplication of the fear, meaning that the CC effectively doesn't suffer from DR like most other hard CCs do. Don't get me wrong, this ultimate even after the nerfs is still incredibly powerful, but with the recent changes made to this ability that hard caps the fear duration to 1 second, it makes it significantly less desirable. Fearing potentially an entire team even for 1 second is still amazing, but as I said, this ultimate would have been significantly higher on the list before this nerf. Even in Smite 1, it was always one of the most powerful ultimates in the game, and with Smite 2's one relic system making beads less common, it only got better. But yeah, the nerf does hurt this quite a bit, which is why it's only at number 7. Taking the number 6 spot on my list, we have Hecate's ultimate, Open the Gates. I think initially it took the player base a while to recognize how utterly devastating this ultimate can be when used correctly, but boy did we find out. The most obvious use case for this ability is just as a ranged zero commitment Ares ultimate that you can just throw out, and if it lands, the enemies hit by it basically have to beads or die, assuming there's some kind of follow-up from your team after the enemies are teleported. This ult also has some utility outside of just that though. It actually keeps Hecate incredibly safe if you want to use it that way. Sure, burning your ultimate just to survive a dive doesn't feel great, but placing your ultimate on yourself and either teleporting the enemies away or teleporting away yourself afterwards means Hecate is actually one of the more safe and hard to dive mid laners in the game, providing she has this ultimate ready. Oh, and it does all of this on a base 90-second cooldown in the late game. Sure, it scales down from 110 to 90, but for how powerful this ultimate is, it's crazy that it reaches a base 90-second cooldown at all. With how much CDR is in the game, you don't even feel that bad if you have to use this defensively or just throw it out to fish for pulls before a fight starts. Because if you have plenty of CDR on your build, it's going to be back up in 40 to 50 seconds anyway. With the one relic system making beads less common, these kind of ultimates that are basically a touch of death beads check are incredibly powerful, and we've seen demonstrations of how devastating this ultimate can be time and time again. So my next pick for the list comes with a small disclaimer, as for number 5 I have Princess Bari's ultimate, Spirit's Cadence. Bari is a very new release as of making this video, and it's possible her ultimate only appears so strong because she herself is so strong, much like release gods often are. However, this ultimate does a lot of different things for Bari, and I do think it's one of the most powerful ults in the game right now. The most obvious trait of this ability is the death resistance aspect, which, while not quite as strong as something like Khepri ult for that purpose, is still incredibly powerful. I talked earlier about how even a couple of extra seconds can make all the difference in a game like Smite, and that is best displayed here. When taking lethal damage, you prevent it and become immune for 1.5 seconds, but can't attack. So in that way, it is worse than Khepri's ultimate. However, this applies to anyone on Bari's team who enters the area, and this death resist effect isn't the only thing this ultimate does. It does decent damage and slows, nothing crazy, it won't be one-shotting or anything like that, but it isn't completely irrelevant either. And another major factor of this ultimate is that it immediately puts Bari into her spirit form for 10 seconds instead of the usual 5, giving her access to an enhanced ability for free, as well as 10 seconds of massively boosted stats and AoE basic attacks. As I mentioned at the beginning, this ultimate is of course very new, and it's possible I'm overrating it here, but it's also possible I'm underrating it as well, as it does so much for Bari and her team. What do you think? Is Bari ult better or worse than number 5, or did I get it just right? Let me know down below. Next up at number 4 for the list though, we have Aphrodite's ultimate, Undying Love. Similar to Artemis, Aphro ult has always been one of the most powerful tools, even in Smite 1, but with the transition to Smite 2, it just got even better due to the one relic system. You now have to choose between beads or Aegis. You can't have both, but you can have both if you have an Aphro on your team. In fact, you can actually have a way better version of both. The immunity that this ultimate provides is just insane and breaks the game in a similar way to something like Khepri ultimate. The 2-second immunity is the same length as beads and actually longer than Aegis, applies to 2 people at once, you can heal during it when you can't heal during Aegis. Oh, and it does all of this on a much lower cooldown than beads and Aegis, at 100 seconds compared to 150 and 140 respectively. Hell, with a bit of CDR in your build, you can even get this ultimate down to around 50 seconds, which is just ridiculous. Of course, this is a god's ultimate slot, not just a free item everyone gets at game start, so it makes sense that it's more powerful than beads or Aegis, but it's just so ridiculously game-breaking in Smite 2's one relic system, and it's a large reason why Aphrodite still gets banned to this day, despite not even being picked very much and not even winning that much when she does get picked. People simply don't want to play against the game-breaking properties of Undying Love, and I don't blame them. It's absolutely one of the most powerful ultimates in Smite 2. Breaking the top 3 for the list though, we have a new Smite 2 god with Aladdin and his ultimate Into the Lamp. This ult is the very definition of game-breaking. There's nothing else like it in the game, and it can swing a fight with a click of the Sultan's fingers. Aladdin is already one of the best 1v1 gods in the game due to the insane damage output of his base kit, and the fact that he can just pick someone and pretty much say they die using this ultimate is crazy. Even in situations where he might normally lose a 1v1, the fight inside the lamp is heavily skewed towards Aladdin, as he gets 50 free protections that the enemy doesn't get, as well as a complete reset on his basic cooldowns and GD charges where the enemy only gets a 50% refund. Until some recent nerfs, Aladdin even got a larger health restore percentage and more cooldown rate than his target, but with a recent patch, those two are now equal. But the ult now does impact damage that it didn't do before, so there's a little bit of a trade-off there. Into the Lamp is probably already the most nerfed ability in Smite 2 history, and on release it was by far the best ultimate in the entire game, but I think after all the nerfs it's taken, it sits at number 3 for me. Taking the penultimate spot on the list as the second most powerful ultimate in Smite 2, we have River's Rebuke from Yemoja. This ult is just absolutely crazy and somewhat deceptively powerful. There's a reason it has the longest cooldown of any ability in the entire game, at 140 seconds scaling down to 120. The most obvious use for this ultimate is for the walls it creates, which if you're a good Yemoja and place this ultimate well, will often create a completely inescapable cage that is only countered by Phantom quantum effects, jumps, or teleports. That alone is very powerful as it can separate enemies from the rest of their team, allowing you to pick off targets with ease and start the fight strong. It also is amazing for countering dives for that reason. If the enemy jungle and solo dive your backline, you can cage them in, preventing the rest of their team from helping and pick them off. But isn't Odin's ultimate basically the same thing with a lower cooldown? Well, no. For starters, Odin's ring can be broken, does way less damage, and doesn't CC when it ends, but that's not the main reason. The main reason why Yemoja's ultimate is so ridiculous is the Omi regeneration it provides. This instantly restores half your missing Omi and grants powerful Omi regeneration for the entire time Yemoja is in the wave area and for 4 seconds afterwards. Given Yemoja has no cooldowns and can cast as much as she wants as long as she has Omi, this basically lets you dump abilities non-stop for around 9 seconds. This is the part of River's rebuke that goes overlooked by more casual players in my opinion. Yes, the cage aspect is good, yes it does solid damage and CC, but it's the fact that Yemoja gets practically infinite Omi for the 5 seconds the ability lasts and 4 seconds afterwards that makes this ability deserving of the longest cooldown in the entire game. And before we get to the number 1 most powerful ultimate in Smite 2, a few honorable mentions that I considered for the list but didn't quite make it. Thor's Anvil of Dawn is an amazing semi-global ganking and initiation tool that can lead to true combos that basically kill you if you don't beads. Thanatos Hovering Death is another semi-global stun that's also an execute. Achilles is a resetting execute. Poseidon's Kraken can devastate an entire team fight basically instantly, and Mordred's ultimate after all the buffs is actually amazing in my opinion given how low its effective cooldown is. But finally, the absolute best ultimate in Smite 2 in my opinion is, it's the Morrigan's Changeling. I always struggle when making these lists on whether I should just ban Morrigan ult because in theory at least it clears every ultimate in the entire game simply by virtue of being every ultimate in the entire game with the bonus of coming with the entire base kit of the Chosen God as well. In practice though, you could make arguments that Morrigan ult actually isn't the best in the entire game. Until the recent removal of Combat Blink, I do think there was no question about this being the best. Because of everything I just said, on top of getting a free Combat Blink every 60 seconds with some CDR, you still get the enemy's relic when ulting into them unlike you did in Smite 1, but with the removal of Combat Blink, it's not quite as good as it was. Still, this ultimate is effectively just any other ultimate in the entire game plus their base kit and relic, which is hard not to place at the very top of the list. Hence why I always consider banning this ability. But if you personally feel like it should be banned, just move every other ult on the list up 1 spot, as I do think there's a reasonable argument to be made that Morrigan's ultimate doesn't belong on the list. Well, that's my full top 10 list of the most overpowered ultimates in Smite 2. Let me know your own thoughts down below, of course. Were there any I didn't mention that would make your list? Would you shuffle the order around a bit? Leave your own thoughts down below, and I'll catch you guys for another one later on. Have a great day, and peace out, you nerds.